Yeah, just to kind of emphasize the point further, um, Anthropic has all your conversations for data.
Yeah.
OpenAI also has your conversations as well. Google has all those other data that I mentioned,
Yeah.
your location, your search history, and everything. How do you compete with that? And that's also data that OpenAI and Anthropic can never get access to. They have to build it from scratch. So Google's playing on easy mode right now, and they've gone on the offense much quicker than I expected, to be honest. The second big product launch, or rather announcement that they made this week, was their partnership with Apple, right?
Yeah.
So, for those of you who haven't heard about it, Apple has decided to go with Google's Gemini models as their primary model supplier. So, Apple's not going to be training their own AI model. They're just going to pay Google to license it. And it's costing them $1 billion a year for the privilege of being able to license these models. It's going to power Apple's Siri, and it's also going to power their foundational model. So they're going to kind of like post train it or kind of like train it further to make it specific for their Apple users. Now, if you wanted to understand how impactful this is going to be for Google and Gemini, there are around 2 to 3 billion Apple devices currently operating. So that's net new distribution for Google for people for a company that already has massive distribution. So just an insane deal. And I also want to point out that Apple also had partnerships with Anthropic and OpenAI. That's now dead in the water. And specifically, the reason for this is they said that Google, their foundation was much more capable. It was the only option for them to pick. Their words, not mine,
Does
right?
that mean like
Uh,
tech stack and its
yeah.
scalability? Yeah.
Yes. Which brings me to my next point, which is I don't really think there was any other company that could offer Apple what they wanted, Kyle.
Mm.
I think it was always going to be Google. Why? Because they're the only company that has the entire AI stack, that are leading, sorry, in the entire AI stack at scale. They're the only ones that can scale to 3 billion devices. OpenAI can't do that. They don't have enough compute. They don't have enough infrastructure. They
What
don't
about
have
Grok
enough employees. Grok can't get
or
there because
XAI?
it's not. Yeah. So okay. So if I were looking at Grok right now, they're suffering from a few different things. Number one, the company is still quite young. It's about
Yeah.
what is it, like a year and a half? They
Right.
started a couple years late, right? That's not to say they aren't scaling fast enough. They are, but they're just not there yet. And Apple needs something right now. Number
Yeah.
two,
Okay.
Grok 4, which is their model that is available unofficially, they're meant to be releasing 4.2, but it's just not out yet. Grok 4 is good, but it's not as good as Google Gemini. And then number three, Google Gemini doesn't rely on NVIDIA GPUs. They don't have to play in this whole game of like, can I get capacity from NVIDIA and TSMC? Google has their TPUs. They've never
Right.
touched an NVIDIA GPU to train their model at all, right? So there's certain reliance that Google can provide for them. And then there's also the decade-long history that Apple has with Google. Remember,
Right.
Google pays Apple $20 billion a year just to be the default search engine for Safari. So there's some camaraderie going on there, I think.
Get the biggest AI moves and what they actually mean for investors twice a week straight to your inbox. The link is in the description.
Stablecoins are the biggest use case in crypto right now, but let's be real. Using them on chain is still way too complex. That's exactly the problem Bridge is solving. Recently acquired by Stripe, yep, that's Stripe, Bridge helps businesses send, store, accept, and launch stablecoins instantly. Explore the future of global financial infrastructure at milkroad.com/bridge.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. The interesting thing about Apple, I'm curious your take on this, is one, really what this partnership does is going to bring Siri to life. It's going to make it smart. Because honestly, Siri has been
Finally.
pretty, right? It's
Yeah.
been the dumbest tool and the worst tool for, I don't know how long it's been around for, but for years. And finally, Siri's going to have a brain, right? And that is Google's Gemini. And I think that's going to make some incredible new use cases, right? For example, I think I'm just going to be able to talk to my phone and tell it to order the groceries I want for my, I don't know, cheesecake recipe that I'm going to make tonight. And it'll just go look up the recipe, right? Find the groceries and then just go order it for me, right? It'll actually be able to execute and think and do more. If you ask Siri to do that now, I don't even know what kind of response it's going to give me, but it's not going to be useful. So I really think this is going to be a huge step forward in the actual capability of people being able to use AI, because you don't even really need to download anything. It's just already on your phone. Like you said, 2 or 3 million devices all of a sudden just get access to Gemini. And who knows what Apple's going to do with this. I think it's coming in the summer of 2026, as far as I know. I think it's going to be a huge step forward. And so I'm pretty excited for that. Do you have any thoughts on what this might actually be other than Siri's going to be smarter?
So I can't comment on what exactly it'll look like. I think the general idea that you just gave there, which is it's going to be extremely helpful for
Yeah.
anyone that uses an Apple device, is bang on. One thing I will say is everyone likes to kind of dunk on Apple, saying, "Hey, God, like they've reached a point where they have to like rely on Google." And that was me at one point, but I now have a different view now, which is you could argue that Apple is actually really smart because they haven't spent tens to hundreds of billions of dollars of capex to train a model. And they don't have to manage any of the data center infrastructure. They've just let everyone else fight it out. And then they license it for $1 billion. So Apple has plenty of cash. And then they'll take that that technology and do what they do best, which is building the best user experience ecosystem that has ever existed. That's why Apple is Apple. So what I'm really excited about is what they're going to do with the models. I think they'll build some of the best app experiences and AI experiences that actually feel like magic using Google's Gemini model. So it's a win-win in my opinion. Anyway, quickly moving on, the third announcement that Google made is they want to take over all e-commerce transactions. So they launched something called the Universal Commerce Protocol, which basically will allow anyone to purchase anything just by asking Gemini in plain English on the Gemini app, on the chatbot. And there's been previously promises made by the likes of OpenAI through their agent that you could have something that works like this, but it's never really worked. This is something that actually will work because Google has built out the end-to-end kind of flow for something like this. And they've partnered with some really big retailers to start off with, Shopify, Walmart, and a bunch of others. So what I like about this is if you think about what this could become a few years in the future, okay, let's say it actually scales and it's actually useful, and my girlfriend spends all her money on Gemini buying a bunch of random crap because it keeps advertising it to her, or it's something that she just genuinely wants to buy and it's really good at identifying it. Google becomes the intents layer for e-commerce. What does that mean? It means it'll know exactly what you want to buy and provide you with the link or the option to buy it. In fact, it'll automate the entire checkout process for you. It'll just add to cart and do it for you. You just have to say yes, and it'll know why you want to buy it. That shifts the power from the likes of Amazon, for example, who currently captures the intents and it can track, oh yeah, this is why Carl's buying this, over to Google. And that's incredibly powerful because Amazon now just becomes a warehouse and distribution service, and Google becomes the intents layer, which is incredibly valuable. So Google's just going for everything, right? And to round this out, okay, because I'm talking a lot about Google now, but I want to round this out. Josh and I, my co-host, we commented on these 3 launches, and this was on Tuesday, Kyle. So it was a crazy week already, right? And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So they're going to use all this data and all these product launches to build a personalized version of Gemini. And that is going to be the sickest thing ever because we finally go from general LLMs to something that cares about me. I don't care about you, Kyle, and what you want. I want an AI that cares about me, right? And then literally the next day they announced Google Personal Intelligence, which is their 4th product launch of this week, which is exactly that. So long story short, I am exhausted, but very bullish Google.
Yeah, also extremely bullish Google. The speed at which they're doing this, I think when you were on about a month ago, you were like, yeah, Google's the one to be looking at. They're gonna own they own the AI tech stack already. They're gonna be able to launch the best products, and we're already seeing it coming to fruition. What are we, 2 weeks into 2026? How does anyone compete with Google? Like, can anyone compete at this level right now? Because they are at a level that is just absolutely crazy. I'm not sure anyone can compete. What do you think? And is this a good thing? Because we sort of chatted about this before we started clicking record, which is like they are literally going to own it all and they're going to have all of our data. And is this a bad thing? Like, how do you think about what's happening here?
Want to stay ahead of the biggest technological shift in history? Subscribe now to get insights straight from the sharpest minds in tech and finance. Quick legal note, this show's for educational purposes only. Nothing here is financial advice. Investing always carries risk. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.